Both Brazil and the UK are giving us a glimpse of what it's like in the era of modern censorship, where the authorities, with the help of these online platforms, can basically dictate what we share online, but more importantly, what we can think and speak about. And it begs the question, what is modern free speech? Let's dive into it. So before we dive into the story, before we get to the comments and to the clips and to the internet, I want to bring your attention to George Orwell, the author of the book 1984, written, by the way, in 1949. It says, "Those who control the present control the past, and those who control the past control the future." What he's saying here is, if you can paint a narrative of bad people in the past, even if it's not true, but if you can paint that narrative of the past, then you can draw the conclusion and kind of direct people to vote, direct people to think in a certain way to prevent that same bad outcome in the future. So with those insights from young George, let's look at what this story is with Brazil banning X.
For some young people in Brazil, the ban of X is like cutting off a lifeline. I've lost touch a little with what's happening around the world and a way of entertaining myself, this student says.
This is actually, I've lost touch of what's happening in the world. This is a crazy impact where we have these platforms that are, for the first time, user-generated content. Before, you had kind of this long delay between story and news because the distribution was not immediate or instant. The internet changed that. And then Web 2.0, social media, this kind of user-generated era, created this instant access with a wide net of who was actually creating the stories. And that gave this interesting perspective on the world that, frankly, I don't think the authorities were ready for or really knew what to do with. And now we're seeing in real time what it looks like when the authorities kind of clap back and don't like what's being shared.
Brazil's telecom regulators suspended access to the platform Saturday, following a ruling from the country's Supreme Court after the social media giant missed a key deadline to name a legal representative in Brazil. Elon Musk has been battling Brazilian authorities, arguing the country's high court is trying to enforce censorship. Brazil has ruled X needs enhanced regulations to fight hate. Brazil's president says Musk must respect the court. This man has to accept the laws of this country, and if this country takes a decision through the Supreme Court, he has to comply.
See, this is where we've got this decentralized protocol in the internet with centralized platforms in the middle and these obviously centralized authorities, and I would call them authoritative regimes in the government. And we saw this actually in Canada recently, where the Canadian government decided that Facebook had to pay a link tax. We love our taxes here in Canada, and they decided that it was unfair to these hardworking journalists that Facebook was just sharing their stories and then reaping the rewards of that distribution. And so they played a game of chicken with Facebook, the 7th most valuable company in the world. Little tiny Canadian government decided to play chicken with.
Brazil has said anyone who tries to get around the ruling to access X, still known to many of us as Twitter, by using a virtual private network or VPN, will face daily fines of 50,000 reais, or nearly 12,000 Canadian dollars.
This is serious. And actually, this is interesting because what it does is it puts the onus onto the people with massive scare tactics. Obviously, obfuscating and using X in Brazil is very easy to do with a VPN. Or, you know, the Nostr crowd, where you at, you might say, well, Nostr fixes this, they can't choke the throat of Nostr. No, but they can make Nostr illegal in that country. Not technically, but physically. As a result, begs the question, what is modern free speech? What are you willing to lose in order to gain it?
Some legal experts have questioned the move, and the Brazilian Bar Association plans to request the Supreme Court review fines imposed without due process. Following the suspension, Musk, who frequently uses the megaphone of his platform to fight for free speech, but with the court ruling the ban will remain in place until X complies with its orders, and Musk refusing to back down, Brazilians could stay cut off from one of the internet's biggest platforms indefinitely.
This is actually insane. The fact that Musk, who kind of has that FU money, he kind of doesn't need Brazil. And obviously they're not public. They're not like going through this horrific, share price turmoil as a result. They can kind of expand and widen their time preference in order to actually keep stand and actually hold ground against the tyranny of, let's just call it that, the tyranny of Brazil. We obviously talked about last week, Pavel Durov getting arrested with Telegram. We saw the CEO of Rumble fleeing the EU. Now, is South America and Brazil really that safe? It's crazy to see how these entrepreneurs are kind of all of a sudden turning into, massive advocates for industries. The world is going in a crazy direction. And again, George Orwell kind of predicted it in 1984. Comments on the video has, the further a society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those who speak it, by George Orwell. Yeah, I mean, George, right? Free speech, Maxi George. We have to really think who and why we don't want people sharing stuff, even fake things. Coming soon to a Canadian city near you. Yeah, that was my first thought. Honestly, when I saw Brazil ban X, I thought, I wonder how long until Canada bans X. And then I got into my mindset. I wonder how long until, Nostr becomes illegal. I wonder how long and what would happen for people to stop sharing what they believe to be truth. How long, how far will the government go in order to prevent people from speaking what they believe to be true?
Okay, the time's 20 to 3, 14:40. I'm arresting you on suspicion of improper use of the electronic communications network. And just
What?
127 of the Communications Act, okay? So you do not have to say it. It may harm your defence if you don't mention one question, subject to later or in court. Anything you do say may be given evidence. Do you understand that?
So I'm actually being
You're
arrested?
going to be arrested, okay?
Right,
Take you
and-
up to the police station.
Right.
Okay, this is in relation to some comments that you've made on a Facebook page.
Holy smokes. This is crazy. And now, I don't know. I would actually love for you to tell me about down below. Has this ever happened in society in public square? Obviously, creating a disturbance, creating a ruckus is not allowed in a public town square type of environment. But has anyone ever been arrested for saying things that the state disagreed with at a public level?
You said I was going to be arrested under some what information? I'm going to be arrested for posting on Facebook.
Some comments that are offensive, obscene, and people have made a complaint about that, and it's
And can you tell me what this comment was?
Okay, well we'll do that when we interview.
All right. And so, what am I going to be locked up for the night, or?
Hopefully not.
Right. Do I need to
Unless
take
you
my
film
medications
us.
with me?
Yes, we will look at taking all of those.
When do you need to take them?
Well, I've got pain medications. I've got sleeping medication. I've got anxiety medications, which I might take one of those in a bit.
Okay.
Well,
if we take everything with us, then you've got everything there, haven't you?
And then we've got a nurse up there.
This is just quickly, a bit of a sidebar. This is such classic UK arrest. I imagine this arrest in America would be way more violent. There's just three people having a pretty nice conversation. This is really refreshing and nice to see. We start bridging the gap between what we feel comfortable saying, not because it's not what we believe, but because what other people will do to us if they found out that we believed it. What a dystopian society. Need to change the tides. We can't live like this. Yeah. He's not wrong. And so let's say this man said something absolutely heinous, absolutely horrific, racism, actual hate speech. Let's say it was truly horrific. What should the crime be for that? Are we so fragile that we care about what that man thinks of us? Or can we chalk him up to a deadbeat? Can we chalk him up to someone's opinion that doesn't matter and go on with our day? This feels like we're entering into society with the illusion of freedom, but not actual freedom. Next, we have, this offense is so serious that the immediate custodial sentence is unavoidable. Britain is the new North Korea.
Went on to say that you did not want your money going to immigrants who, quote, rape our kids and get priority, end quote. This offence is so serious that an immediate custodial sentence is unavoidable. Would you stand, please? The sentence that I pass has been reduced by 1/3 to reflect your guilty plea. The sentence is one of 20 months imprisonment.
20 months for claiming that immigrants are going to... That's not a nice thing to say. Now, if it's his experience, it's actually kind of no different than somebody else claiming rape. But if it's not his experience, then obviously that's a stereotype. But again, why is this so bad? And as a society, where do we agree to collectively draw the line? Because when you give a movable target, when you create a target of what's wrong, and you give somebody else the power to change or recreate that target, then you run into a really slippery slope, a landslide slope that gives somebody else complete domain over what you think and what you can say. The sentence is designed to shock every single one of us, to scare us into submission. The thought police is here and ready to take away our freedom of speech. Terrible. Yeah, I think that's pretty true. That is a shocking sentence, because I know for a fact that a lot more people have said a lot worse things online. Then it begs the question, how much different is the PPC from the Liberal Party in Canada, or this state in Brazil that's now censoring X because they won't censor people? We saw Mark Zuckerberg talk about how the USA, the FBI, forced Zuck to censor things during the election. How far are we from these tyrannical societies? We literally here have the UK government quoting, "Think before you post." Content that incites violence or hatred isn't just harmful, it can be illegal. The CPS takes online violence seriously. It will prosecute when the legal test is met. Remind those close to you to share responsibility or face the consequences. This is written like a bloody warning. This is not some kind of nice post to advise their citizens of a law change. This is written as a very, we have whips and chains and we are going to hurt you if you do not comply. This is the beginning of the end of free speech in the UK. We have the EU. Looks like on August 12th, about a month ago, they wanted to censor the Elon Musk and Donald Trump conversation that they had on the Twitter space. Any negative effect of illegal content on X in the EU, which could be attributed to the ineffectiveness of the way in which X applies the relevant provisions of the DSA, may be relevant in the context of the ongoing proceedings and of the overall assessment of X's compliance with EU law. Say what we want you to say, don't say what we don't want you to say, or we're going to throw you in jail. Elon just absolutely does not care. This is what FU money does. This is actually why, I know that you guys in the comments, some of you blast me for bringing Bitcoin into things. This is why sound money is so important, because quick Bitcoin rant. In a sound money society, you have the ability to save your dollars without someone else's permission, to save the purchasing power that your dollars have without someone else's permission. However, in a society that steals your money through inflation, you have less of an ability to protect your wealth. You have less of an ability to preserve your purchasing power into the future, which is what prevents people from fighting the state. Elon, who has more money than anyone on planet Earth, can fight back against the state. And he does so with a Tropic Thunder meme. There are arguably very few people on planet Earth that can take this approach right now. At the end of the day, your throat will be choked. And even worse, not your throat, but your children's throats, in order for them, whoever the state may be in charge, in order for them to get what they want, they will take force against you and your loved ones. And unless you have the means necessary to protect yourself and fight for yourself, you won't be able to defend yourself. This is why, Bitcoin rant coming to an end, this is why having Bitcoin in self-custody is the most important thing you can do to protect yourself against this level of tyranny. But I want to know, what else can you do? Obviously, I'm a Bitcoin advocate. I run a Bitcoin platform at bitcoinworld.com. I want you to protect yourself. We are literally on a mission to enable independence. But I want to know, what are you doing? How are you protecting yourself against this level of tyranny? How do we and how do you preserve your freedom of speech? Don't forget to tell me down below, like and subscribe if you like videos like this, and most importantly, stay sovereign.